Holy Gospel according to John. There was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had likewise been invited to the celebration. At a certain point, the wine ran out, and Jesus' mother told him, "They have no more wine." Jesus replied, "Woman, how does this concern of yours involve me? My hour has not yet come." His mother instructed those waiting on table, "Do whatever he tells you." As prescribed for Jewish ceremonial washings, there were at hand 6 stone water jars, each one holding 15 to 25 gallons. "Fill those jars with water," Jesus ordered, at which they filled them to the brim. "Now," he said, "draw some out and take it to the waiter in charge." They did as he instructed them. The waiter in charge tasted the water made wine, without knowing where it had come from. Only the waiters knew, since they had drawn the water. Then the waiter in charge called the groom over and remarked to him, "People usually serve the choice wine first. Then, when the guests have been drinking a while, a lesser vintage. What you have done is keep the choice wine until now." Jesus performed this first of his signs at Cana in Galilee. Thus did he reveal his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum, along with his mother and brothers and his disciples, but they stayed there only a few days. The Gospel of the Lord. And praised be Jesus and Mary. We are here in the sanctuary, the shrine of the wedding. This shrine where Jesus comes to a wedding. And there are various points that we can give our attention to in this gospel. Even just the invitation. The invitation, it's not Jesus who's invited in the first place. It's actually Mary who's invited. And because Mary is invited, then Jesus comes. And because Jesus is coming, well, his disciples come also. Probably a small number of disciples. In the previous chapter of John, only 5 were mentioned. And so, but Jesus' presence here is very significant, because this is apparently where he instituted the sacrament of marriage. All of the 7 sacraments were instituted by Jesus. For some, it's obvious where they were instituted. We can think of the Eucharist, that's the clearest case. There it's very explicit. And together with the Eucharist, also the priesthood is implicit in the command to do this in memory of me. But others are less clear. And here, this is the moment which theologians have identified as the moment in which Jesus institutes the sacrament of marriage. So, by coming to that marriage, and also by a miracle which allows the wedding feast to continue, Jesus shows that marriage is good. And this was an important point in the early centuries of Christianity, where there were the Gnostics and others who thought that matter was evil. Matter was created by some sort of evil god, and that was where all the evil in the world came from, from drink and, but really, matter, the Church teaches us, and Christ teaches us that matter is good. It is part of God's creation, and marriage is good. And so even though virginity for the kingdom of God is better, and since our guide loves jokes about mother-in-law, we can mention one advantage of consecrated virginity. If you are a bride of Christ, then that's the only case in which you have a perfect mother-in-law, because it's the Immaculate Conception. But to have that grace, to be called to live in perfect chastity, to live a vow of chastity, is a very special grace which is not given to many people. Much more common is the vocation to marriage. But marriage is different from all the other sacraments in that it's already part of the natural law. So we have here a first reading in Genesis where we see marriage established by God, and then a second reading, the Gospel, in which marriage is then elevated from being a natural institution, part of the creation, to being a sacrament for the baptized. So we have that the fundamentally marriage established in that Adam speaks of it, saying, no, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. It's not like the animals. It's not an inferior being, but this is one who is truly my equal. And so she shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. That's sort of a pun in Hebrew, but we won't explain Hebrew puns at the moment, or play on words in any case. Wherefore, no, he says, a man shall leave father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be two in one flesh. No, flesh is not merely in the Bible, not merely the physical part of man, but refers to humanity. So that their lives will become one. They will be united, and their lives will become one life. Will be almost as if they were to become one human being, yet they remain two. And however, that institution created at the beginning of human history, or even in prehistory, at the beginning when there was the first man and first woman, in time that institution was distorted by sin. Polygamy came into the world, and divorce as well. So Jesus comes and restores marriage, first of all. So when he was asked in the sermon, it wasn't in the Sermon on the Mount, but later, when he was asked under what conditions divorce would be permitted in Matthew 19, he answered that this was something that Moses had permitted by reason of the hardness of heart of the Jews, but that was not the way that it was in the beginning. And so, from now on, that exception which was permitted will no longer be valid. And so, from now on, from the time that Jesus came and restored marriage to its original state, any divorce becomes no longer has validity, and so those who divorce and remarry commit adultery thereby. And so that's marriage is established as part of creation the way that it was in the beginning, and the way that Jesus restored it is one man and one woman who remain together until death do them part. Because it's something established by God and not for human convenience. It's not a thing that we can change, but it's a gift of God that we need to accept. This is what marriage is. So, besides restoring marriage to the way that it was first created, Christ also elevates it. I said that, so that marriage between two baptized persons becomes a sacrament. So since it's a sacrament, it's a source of grace. It's a means of sanctification, and it also has a meaning. It signifies something, namely the union between Christ and his church. So more could certainly be said about that, but let's go back to the gospel here. So if this is the occasion on which marriage was elevated to become a sacrifice, then we can even see an importance to the little details here, like that of the invitation. Perhaps what that's trying to tell us is remember, Jesus isn't the one invited in the first place, it's Mary, and so because Mary is coming, well, her son can come, and because her son's coming, well, his disciples can come as well. But if that's something in a way fundamental to marriage, perhaps it's telling us that if we want to have Jesus in the marriage, if we want to have his grace in the marriage, then we need to, in the first place, invite Mary in, and then Mary will bring Jesus into the marriage, or into the grace of Jesus into that marriage. And together with him, his disciples, the saints, will bring their help as well. So then at Cana, Mary notes that there's no wine left and points this out to Jesus. In that we can see how she's interested even in the tiniest details of our life. She's interested in making sure that this wedding goes well, that the couple isn't embarrassed by the fact that they didn't plan to have enough wine to last all the various days, because in those days a marriage feast could last a week, so you needed to have a good bit of wine. And so in this we see how she's interested in the tiniest details of our life, how her concern is. In a way that's a very feminine thing, to be concerned about the details, to notice those little things that are so important. And then, but Jesus' answer seems almost like a rejection, that we could, but really this expression, although perhaps in other contexts it could be a way of brushing someone off, this is an expression that, at least the parallel expression in Arabic, Blessed Gabriela Allegra tells us, depends very much what it means on the tone of voice with which it's said. It's one thing, if we can take an English example, it's one thing if for someone to lovingly ask, "Oh, what are you doing?" And it's another thing altogether if you say it in a voice like, "What are you doing?" Those are two extremely different things. And since we can't tell Jesus' tone of voice from reading the Gospel, we need to look at the context on how the reaction is, to tell whether that was a rejection of what Mary was saying or whether it meant something else. And so when we look at what happens afterwards, we see that Jesus doesn't seem to have rejected what Mary was asking, because he then goes and performs the miracle. Mary doesn't seem to have understood it as a rejection, because she turns to the waiters and says, "Do whatever he tells you." So she's assuming that Jesus has agreed to the miracle. But in this, when sometimes today when someone is called woman, that's kind of a put down. No, you're just a woman. I don't have to pay any attention to you. But that's certainly not Jesus' point of view on women. So what Jesus means by woman is something that leads us to think more profoundly of this episode. That when Mary is called woman, this refers to her place in salvation history. And we see that also by the fact that Jesus says, "My hour has not yet come." Now, what is Jesus' hour? That we find toward the end of John's Gospel, when he starts talking a lot about his hour. When he says, just on the eve of his passion during that first Holy Week, he said, "The hour is come that the Son of Man should be glorified." So Jesus' hour refers to the time of his passion, death, and resurrection. It refers to the hour of his glorification, and he's indeed glorified even on the cross. So when Mary is called woman at Cana, again, we should think of another time when she's called woman in the Gospel, which is when Jesus is on the cross and says, "Woman, behold your son." It's not a put down there either. It's referring to her as the woman, as the new Eve. That she has this very special role in salvation history of cooperating with Christ in his work of redemption. And so, Jesus here is referring to the hour of his glorification, to the time of his passion, death, and resurrection. I could go on and explain still more about this, because this conversation between Jesus and Mary is actually, I believe, very profound, much more so than it first appears. But we can't really go into all of that now, because we don't have a great deal of time. But Mary, I think, is speaking of something much more than just wine, and so is Jesus. Jesus is speaking of something which is truly the best wine, the wine to which we find someone referring on the day of Pentecost. I think she's speaking about the Holy Spirit, which cannot be given until the hour of Jesus' glorification, if we think of John 7. But all that can be perhaps explained another time. For now, let us listen to Our Lady. Let us call her, invite her into our life, into our families, marriages, and follow her advice. Do whatever he tells you. Praise be Jesus and Mary. And now we need to move along to the renewal of marriage vows. What God has joined together, let no one set apart. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you.
Vai, tá ali, Deus que se